We all know how it is, right? Just drowning in information.
Yeah.
But sometimes you find something that really cuts through, feels like it could be genuinely important.
Yeah, and that's what we're doing today. We got these source materials from you, the listener, about something called SQARES.
SQARES. Sounds intriguing.
Yeah.
So our plan is to really unpack this, try to get super clear on, well, three main things.
Exactly. First, who is SQARES? Second, what does it actually do?
And third, maybe the most important bit, what are the benefits? Like for regular people holding its token, SQRS, and also for companies, say, real estate firms using the tech.
Right, because the sources definitely give off this vibe that this could be pretty significant, worth paying attention to.
Okay, let's jump in then. Who is SQARES? The sources say it's a blockchain protocol.
That's the starting point. Think of it like a specialized layer for the blockchain. Its main job, its focus, is taking real-world assets.
Like what kind of assets?
Well, the sources mention things like real estate, shares in private companies, even commodities or art, really tangible stuff.
Okay, tangible assets. And SQARES maps these fully onto the blockchain. What does fully mean here?
It means everything. The legal ownership, the rules around it, all the critical information gets embedded directly onto the blockchain.
And the goal of doing that?
It's about enabling digital ownership and trading, peer-to-peer. So you can own, sell, settle these real-world assets directly without needing the usual middlemen.
No intermediaries for, say, a piece of property. That sounds ambitious.
It is. It aims to make the whole process digital, legally sound, and, instant.
Okay, let's pivot slightly. What does SQARES do, particularly for companies? The sources mentioned real estate firms.
Right. So for a company like one owning buildings, SQARES gives them the tools to fully tokenize those properties, put them completely on chain.
Tokenized properties. So we're talking about creating digital tokens that represent ownership.
Exactly. But it's deeper than just representation. Each property gets its own smart contract. And in that contract, you have all the vital info, the ownership rights, the rules for transfer, everything written onto the blockchain.
And that changes how things work practically.
Oh, definitely. Imagine a company breaking a large building into, say, thousands of digital shares. They can then offer these shares to anyone, anywhere in the world.
Fractional ownership, but global.
Precisely. And because the rules are in the code, transfers can happen automatically when tokens are sold. This slashes transaction costs, gets rid of tons of manual paperwork.
Which means more liquidity, I guess. Easier to buy and sell.
That's a huge point in the sources, yeah. Increased liquidity for assets that are usually quite difficult to sell quickly. Plus, it opens the door to, younger investors or international buyers who might find the old ways too complex.
Okay, that makes sense for the companies. Now, let's look at the benefits again, but specifically for the two groups mentioned, the individual holding the SQRS token, and then we'll recap the company side. What about the SQRS token holder?
So SQRS is described as the native utility token for the RWA blockchain. That's the sort of operating system SQARES runs on.
Native utility token, meaning it's used for something specific on that blockchain.
Exactly. It acts like fuel, or maybe think of it like gas for the network. Every single transaction changing property ownership, registering a new asset, whatever it is, requires SQRS tokens to happen.
So if I hold SQRS, I'm holding a piece of the machinery needed to make this whole thing work.
That's the idea presented. You're involved in the fundamental infrastructure. The source uses this analogy of a digital toll system for this new tokenized asset market. Your tokens enable the activity.
And the benefit comes from that position. How does that translate to value?
Well, the logic is, as more companies use SQARES, tokenize more assets, and more people trade these assets, the demand for SQRS tokens has to go up, right? Because you need them for every transaction.
Okay, rising demand based on usage.
Yeah. And then there's the supply side. The sources highlight that SQRS is designed to be hyper-deflationary. They plan to basically destroy 95% of the tokens over the next 10 years.
Wow, 95% burn, so less supply.
Less supply meeting potentially rising demand. That combination is presented as a strong driver for potential value growth for token holders. You're tied into the network's success.
Got it. That's clear. And for the company, just circling back quickly, the benefit is essentially getting this TEP to sell assets directly, globally, and efficiently.
Pretty much. It's the toolkit for tokenizing assets in a way that's transparent, compliant, because the rules are baked in, and lets them manage everything digitally on-chain.
So the sources really paint SQARES as a kind of bridge, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. A bridge between, the traditional economy of physical assets and finance, and this new decentralized world powered by blockchain. It's positioned as enabling new ways of building wealth and innovating.
The potential for both sides, the individual with the token and the company using the tech, does feel quite substantial based on this.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah. What are the broader implications if this takes off? Tokenizing all sorts of real-world stuff.
I mean, imagine owning and instantly trading fractions of anything valuable. Buildings, art, commodities across borders settled automatically. How does that fundamentally change investing? Access to value, maybe even what we consider valuable.
It feels like it could be a really deep shift in how things work, a fundamental change, like you said.
It certainly suggests we could be looking at the start of something quite transformative for wealth and assets.
Well, that's definitely food for thought. If listening to this has got you thinking, okay, I need to understand this better, maybe you're sensing that opportunity. The sources actually give a specific recommendation.
They do. They point towards talking to David Wagner for more information. He's highlighted as a real expert here.
Why him specifically?
Because he's got this really interesting background. Been in traditional finance since way back in 2001, but also deep in the blockchain space since 2015.
Ah, so he understands both worlds, the old and the new.
Exactly. That kind of experience seems perfect for understanding something like SQARES, which is all about connecting those two realities. If you want to go deeper, he sounds like the person to talk to.